say the game is getting old. Monday morning and your coffee's cold. Life is not what you want it to be.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to A New Direction. My name is Jay Izzo. I mean, we have an outstanding show. Holy cow. I have with us Major Jason B.A., Van Camp, retired, Green Beret, Special Operations Forces. His book entitled Deliberate Discomfort. Folks, get ready to embrace the suck. All right, that's what I'm going to tell you right now, because I'm telling you, this thing is a life changer. It is a business changer. It is a leadership changer. It is a success changer. Everything that you want in your life that you don't have is right here in this book. I'm just telling you, if you're looking to be a better leader, you need to read Deliberate Discomfort. If you're looking to be better in success in your life, in your business, or your career, Deliberate Discomfort, read it. The book is just crazy good. It is absolutely outstanding, and he's going to join us here in a very short period of time. But let's do what we do every week. And I got to tell you something. Jason really inspired me because actually him and the guys he interviewed that just totally inspired me. And I'll tell you why. I was actually stealing some of his stuff as I was talking to a group today. And in the book, and we'll talk about it, we talk about that, when things are falling apart around you, or you're completely exhausted, or you're completely overstressed, or you're completely don't have your best, right? The truth of the matter is you're only as good as your training. And by the way, in all four areas of your life, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, you're only as good as the training and the preparation that you've pushed yourself to do. If you go into battle and you have not trained, all right, guess what? You've already lost. It's too late, right? That's why, like even during this whole pandemic thing, right? It's why you have to train every day physically, but you need to train every day mentally. You need to train every day emotionally. You need to train every day spiritually. You do. Because, when things do go bad, that's the only thing you have to rely on, right? So instead of normally I check in with you, I say, on a scale of 1 to 10, right? I'm not going to ask you where you're at. I'm going to ask you to be honest about your training in each of these areas. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being my training is off. 1 is my training is awful. 10, my training is outstanding. How would you rate your training right now physically? And that entails eating right, exercise, drinking plenty of water, and getting plenty of sleep. So how's your training regimen going? Right? Listen, if it's a 3, you know what? You got to change it, right? Because there is no way that if your training regimen is only a 3 physically, right? How are you going to handle it when the stress really comes down on you? Right? We got to improve. Right? So whatever your number is, by the way, and it's okay, whatever the number is, right? Whether a 5 is average, if it's a 3, we got to get to a 4. You can't get from a 3 to a 10, okay? You have to be committed to getting to a 3 to a 4, 4 to a 5, and so forth, right? All right, so you've got one number. There's your physical training number. Second, how are you doing training your mind, your mental capacity? How are you doing? What are you consuming? Are you reading books like Deliberate Discomfort to improve your mind and well-being? Are you consuming things that are actually healthy to help you grow in wisdom and knowledge and understanding in your life and maybe in your career and your business? Are you being better? Are you training your mind? How are you doing training your mind? Or are you just letting people tell you what to think? Right? There's a difference, right? Because training your mind means that you're actively doing something to train your mind. Right? So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, I'm really not training my mind very well, Jay, to 10, dude, I am reading every day. I am focused on getting better every single day with my mind. How would you rate yourself? And then, whatever that number is, how do you get to the next number? Right? So you got 2 numbers, physical, mental. Then comes the emotional piece, right? The emotional piece is, we have really 2 pieces. We talk about emotional intelligence, emotional quotients a lot, but let me tell you the 2 pieces as a psychological professional. The 2 pieces are this, right? One is how well are you able to control your emotions under stress, which a lot of that is intention. And then the second piece is how well are you able to truly understand and empathize with the emotions of other people? Right? I'm just going to narrow it down those 2 categories, right? And how well are you training yourself to do that? A lot of this is intention, right? A lot of this is, you know what? There are the emotional wheels that you could study that, by the way, to help you understand that there are more emotions than happy and angry. Okay. there's there's just different levels of all sorts of emotions, and understanding what those are can be a very helpful way for you to understand what you feel, right? And be okay with what you feel. But even more so is to understand how someone else feels. Because as soon as you understand how someone else feels, right, that's when we start to make an attachment to each other that is much deeper. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, you know what, from the emotional area, I'm not doing very well, to 10 being I'm outstanding in my training, how are you doing training your emotions? All right, so you got three numbers: mental, emotional, and physical, and then now we've got the spiritual end, right? And you know, it's interesting. Jason is going to talk to us a little bit about the spiritual end of this, because the spiritual end of our lives is one thing that a lot of us do not want to deal with. But you know, we all have a spirit, right? And we all have that thing that's inside of us that is unexplainable. Science can't explain it. Sometimes we'll hear people say, you know what, music touches the soul, or we'll say something that, you know, music, or maybe it's not just music, but something touches my soul that gives me a sense of peace or a sense of joy or pushes me further, and we don't understand where it comes from. Well, if you remove the physical, mental, and emotional, and whatever you have left, that's really the spiritual realm. And you have to ask yourself a question. How is that? How are you doing training that area? What are you doing to feed your spirit, right? And some people say, well, I don't believe in God. Well, I never asked you to, right? But for some people they do. For some people they try to feed themselves through nature or meditation, or a variety of other things that they try to fill themselves with to enhance their spirit side, right? And so how well are you doing training that side of yourself, right? That's the ultimate question. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I'm not doing very well, to 10 I'm doing outstanding. How is that? How is your meditation? How is the nature thing? How's the God thing working for you? How's that relation working out for you, right? And you have to think of those four areas as kind of like the legs of a chair. If the chair's uneven, right, in those four areas, guess what? You're going to have all sorts of problems, because your posture is going to be bad. Everything's going to be bad. Same token, if all four of them are too low, try eating at a normal sized table when your chair is too low. We just can't do it. And so what we're trying to do is bring up all four areas in our life at the same time, and then we're trying to bring it up evenly so that we're well balanced and that we are the healthiest people we can be. So you know what? This week, work on your training in all four areas of life. Increase it. Make it more intense. Because the more you push yourself, when bad times really come, guess what? Your training is going to take over, and it's going to be great. And speaking of somebody who is absolutely outstanding and is somebody who I admire, and I'm more than a fan. He called me a fan. I'm more than a fan. I believe in what he does and in the work that he's doing, and I'm very grateful to have him. His name is Jason Van Camp. Matter of fact, it's Major Jason Van Camp. Retired, born in Washington, D.C. He is the founder and chairman of Mission 60. Yes, that is M60. It's what Rambo carried around, in case you're trying to figure that out, which is cool. He attended the United States Military Academy at West Point. He also played linebacker for the Black Knights. Love that. I love defensive guys who play football. That's just kind of my thing. He also attended Brigham Young University, where he earned his Master's of Business Administration. He retired from the United States Army Green Berets in 2015, having served most of his military career as a Green Beret in the United States Special Forces. Today, Jason enjoys spending time with his lovely wife, Lizzie, who I think I heard in the background, his daughter, Claire, and his son, Jack. He is the author of this outstanding book, Deliberate Discomfort: How U.S. Special Operations Forces Overcome Fear and Dare to Win by Getting Comfortable Being Uncomfortable. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, and welcome to New Direction, Major Jason Van Camp. Welcome to New Direction, brother.
Jay, thank you so much for having me on. I'm literally grinning from ear to ear, man. This is awesome. And you're more than a fan and a supporter. You're a brother now, man. I appreciate everything you've done for me and the country. So thank you again from the bottom of my heart, sincerely.
You know what? You're so welcome. And dude, the book is outstanding. And I keep saying that, but it's just because I found it really life-changing for me personally. And as I said to you, as I said on air, and I think I said to you off air, the truth of the matter is I've stolen your stuff. I even did it this morning with a group of people talking about you're only as good as your training. And that's something that was you inspired me in the book, and it's really so true. And I think we think of, let's just talk about that right now. We think of, our training as just being physical, but then I started thinking about everything that you're going to talk about in this book, and really our training is really in all four areas of those life in our life, isn't it?
It is. It definitely is. That's how you become a total warrior, a balanced warrior. They select Green Beret officers and Green Beret soldiers not because of our ability to kick in a door and do bench press repetitions and run a 2 mile run under 12 minutes, but our ability to think differently, to negotiate, to build rapport, to take a different perspective on certain situations in combat.
So this book starts off. I think you just come out of the United States Military Academy, I believe, and you were sent to Fort Carson, Colorado. You're about to meet your brand new boss, Major Brian Pettit, who seems like, by the way, he just seems like he's just a cool dude. I mean, he just seems like he just seemed like one of those guys where you kind of go, well, why isn't my boss like Major Brian Pettit? Right? Because the first words out of his mouth when you meet him is he says to you, quote, Jason, I want you to know that you're valuable and I value you. The first
He
lesson,
does.
the first lesson that I need you to understand is that the difference between being a good Green Beret and a great Green Beret is their ability to listen. So he then asks you, and this is, I think, is an important question. So maybe you can kind of help us understand why this is such an important question, because he asks you out of the gate, Jason, you told me about what you've done, but who are you? When he asks you that question, why is that such a fundamentally important question?
Because it's a question. That's a great question itself, Jay. So I think it's such a fundamentally important question because I don't think we really ask ourselves that question. I think that's something that's absolutely critical as a foundation for building a successful career and a successful life. It's knowing yourself, knowing who you are, knowing your values, knowing what you're all about. And when someone asks you that question, at least when I was asked that question, I was put back on my heels. I was like, I don't know how to answer that question. Like, what are you looking for, sir? And then he explained to me sort of what he was getting at in this story about, the physicist and everything. And
Right.
and I was just like, wow, that was mind blowing. That was life changing. For me, that was a story that I remembered for my entire life.
So you come into this thing, you're a captain at the time, and
That's right.
you have to we'll kind of get people kind of couple stories. So part of the story is that you come into this and you've not led a team, but you're coming in as a young guy who's about to lead some team. Is that a pretty good Reader's Digest version of that?
Yes, that's correct. So how it starts is, I graduated from West Point. I'd been in the Army for a few years, like 2 or 3 years, as a young officer, learning the ropes, getting to understand some things. And you volunteer to go to the Special Forces Selection and Qualification course, that's where you earn your Green Beret. And it's a voluntary thing. And, like the old Staff Sergeant Barry Sadler song goes, the Ballad of the Green Berets, 100 men will test today, but only 3 will win the Green Beret,
Right.
So it's very selective. And so the vast majority of people that go don't make it. And
Right.
so I went through this course 2.5 years, like I said, and I finally get to my unit. So it's finally game day. I've done all the practices, all the training, and it's finally time to lead soldiers into combat, to actually be a Green Beret, to be at the tip of the spear, to do all the things that I trained for, that I've wanted to do. And I'm nervous, I'm anxious. I'm excited as well. And I meet my boss, who luckily in this book, it happens to be a legend, a legendary Special Forces commander, Brian Pettit, at least in my eyes. And I think a lot of people, you will ask about Brian Pettit, they'll tell you that he's also, in their mind, a legend as well. And he sits me down and talks about his leadership philosophy, what makes a good Green Beret, what he expects from me, and trust. And sorry to interrupt. So you keep going.
No, this is perfect because he shares with you. I mean, you kind of have this little you kind of have this little back and forth, right? And then
Yes.
he kind of asks you, what do you think it's about? And then you kind of go back to him and say, well, what do you think it's about? And he kind of gives some keys here that I think are really important. The first thing he comes out of the gates with is no one should have to ask who's in charge here.
Yes.
That's the first thing. No one. And by the way, I just who's in command. I mean, right? They need to, right? That's just but then here's the thing he follows it up with. As a leader, you must love those you lead before you can be effective. God, what? Whoa. Help me. Well, I got to tell people I'm in command, but I need to love those I lead before I can really be effective. Right? Because I think for some people, when they hear this, they have an idea of what being in command is versus loving the people that you lead before you can be effective. How do we resolve those two, Jason?
Yeah, that's a great observation. So I always prided myself on when I was in a room with my team, and we weren't wearing our rank. We were just kind of wearing, certain uniforms that were stripped down or just t-shirts or whatever. Whenever somebody new walked in the room, they would make an assessment like, okay, what's going on here? Who's the commander? I always made it a point to portray an attitude and a confidence and just an atmosphere of I'm in charge here. Nobody needs to ask, hey, who's in charge here? Because when you walk in the door and you look around, you see me, you're like, okay, that's the dude that's in charge. Like I know he's the commander. And at the same time, whenever I was in command and guys were arguing or things were going sideways or there's all these differing opinions or whatever, I always prided myself on also never saying, hey, I'm in charge here. Because whenever you say that, you have to remind people you're actually not in charge.
Right.
Because they don't already know that you are.
Right.
So that was a huge lesson learned from Major Pettit. And in addition to that, like you said, you really, when the bullets are flying, right, in combat, you're not thinking about the freedom or the flag or the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution, or you're not thinking about any of that. Listen, you're thinking about the guy to your left and to your right, because you want to make sure that you don't let that person down. You want to make sure that you do everything you possibly can to make sure that that person stays alive and that they know that they can trust you to do your job. And in turn, you want them to feel the same way about you, and you really get to a point where it's all about love, really is what it is. It's like, I'm doing this because I love this guy. Oftentimes that doesn't mean I have to like this guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's about loving this guy and saying, listen, you're on my team. We're in this together. This is a life and death situation, a scenario. We're going to survive this because I know that I can trust you. I can count on you. You're going to get the job done. You can feel the same way about me. And one way to do that is to really get to know that person, to ask questions, to sit down, to spend some time with that person. And that's how it's established, to really get to know your team well. So I think that's what he was getting after. And that's what I tried my best to do to really feel like I care about this guy on my team. And here's why I care about this guy. Because if you don't know that person, you're not going to care about him. And I'll give you one more story. So we were working with the New York Jets, and this is in the book as well, as you read it. And Matt Slauson, he's a left guard. He was a left guard for the Jets at the time, a fairly young guy. And we went through some training with the Jets. And after it was over, I sat down with Matt, and I was like, hey, what do you think? Did you learn anything? Words to that effect. And he said, yeah, I learned a lot, but there's one thing I learned more than the rest. And I said, well, what's that? And he was kind of silent for a second, and he kind of pointed across the trail. We were outside at the time, and it was Jeff Cumberland, who was at the time a backup tight end for the Jets. He said, do you see that guy? I'm like, yeah, that's Jeff. He's like, yeah, we've been on the same team for years now. I said, okay. He's like, he plays tight end. I'm a left guard. We virtually play right next to each other on the offensive line. I said, okay. He said, the first time I've ever said a word to that guy was 5 minutes ago during your training. And I was like, wow, man. And I said, I just left a meeting earlier today with the team, and Coach Rex Ryan was talking about we're a family, we're brothers, this is a brotherhood. We fight for the man to the left and to the right. And it's like, well, how are you guys going to fight for the man to your left and to your right if you don't even know who that person is? Why would you do that? Like for some stranger? Like that doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
And so we talked about that with Matt and the Jets and talked about leadership and getting to know them. And so Jeff and Matt took some time to really like build a bond and relationship. And as a result, they both had phenomenal years. I think I don't remember the exact numbers in the book that I researched, but I think Jeff had like 3 times as many touchdowns that year as he did the year before because he felt more comfortable. He felt like he was fighting for the people to his left and to his right finally. He felt like he was a part of the tribe, and I think that's also something that we're dealing with right now with the current state of our country. People are not feeling like they're a part of the tribe. They're feeling ostracized. They're feeling oppressed, and that's hard to handle. That's hard to hear. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. No, listen, it is. And by the way, we're with Jason B.A. Van Camp book. He's written here called Deliberate Discomfort. Outstanding book available at Amazon bookstores near you. Available in all formats. It's absolutely, it's just a tremendous book. Check out also his work with Mission 60. I really recommend it. Their consulting work is absolutely beyond outstanding. They work with some of the most major companies, major sports teams, absolutely fantastic. And please, will you do me a favor and check out also, serves on the board of directors for Warrior Rising, and it's a nonprofit organization to help our veterans become more successful in business. And he dedicates his time to those things as well. And he's joining us here on A New Direction. And we want to thank him for his service. So, Jason, thank you for your service. And we're going to come back right after we do this. Hey, everybody, you know what? We have a couple sponsors here on A New Direction, and one of those is Epic Physical Therapy. And Epic Physical Therapy are my therapists, and I will tell you right now, between several knee surgeries, having shoulder rebuilds, because I've torn all 4 rotator cuffs off of both shoulders, and I continue to lift hard and heavy. Listen, I'm just telling you, if you want to be able to recover from serious injury or serious surgeries, or maybe just suffering from everyday aches and pains. Look, maybe you're an elite athlete. Even professional athletes go to Epic Physical Therapy, right? They fly in to go to Epic Physical Therapy. Why? It's because they are the elite. They are an elite team of physical therapists. They provide you with a customized treatment program that's tailored to your individual needs. They have experience rehabbing professional athletes, young athletes, surgeries, injuries. They understand that there's a need to treat the entire body as a functional whole, not just your symptoms or your injuries. So look, when you're ready for epic relief, epic recovery, and epic results, there's no other place to go. You need to start with Epic Physical Therapy. You can learn more by going to epicpt.com. That's EPICPT.com. And Linda Craft and Team Realtors. Look, it doesn't matter where you live in the world. Linda Craft for 35 years has been helping families one relationship at a time, either help them sell a home or buy their next home. And the reason why she is so successful and is able to do this year after year for 35 years is because the relationship is the most important aspect of real estate. The truth of the matter is you will not probably remember the home as much as you'll remember the memories in the home. And that to her is the absolute foundation, is the memories that you're going to create in your home. And so she understands that those memories are important to you, and she wants to take as good a care of your home or as good a care of the home that you want to buy, so that what happens is that those memories are the best memories ever. And, there's a reason why her customers say that her customer service is legendary. And that is because the relationship is that important. So if you're ready for the legends of customer service when it comes to real estate, you need to start with Linda Craft and her team. And you can learn more by going to lindacraft.com. That's LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction. And we're with Major Jason Van Camp and his book, Deliberate Discomfort. Simply, folks, it's a must read. I'm just telling you, it is an absolute must read. You got to read this book. I took 39 pages. I was telling Jason before the show, I took 39 pages of notes on this book. As everybody knows, I take notes in every book, but This one is such a different book that it's those notes have been so highlighted. I've highlighted the book. I've dog-eared the book. It's and I know I sound like I'm this just gloating fan, but the truth of the matter is I am a fan. But the truth of the matter is I found this book really helpful to my personal life. And I really believe that if you will dig into it and you will read it and you will take the lessons, choose to take the lessons. If you will choose to take the lessons that Jason offers in this book, it will be a life changer for you as well. So I hope you will do that. I hope you will make a purchase of this book in whatever format and do it, because I believe that the book is just offering you such priceless information to help you grow in every aspect of your life. So Jason, let's talk about that. We're still in this first, by the way, we're still in the first chapter.
Yes, I love it. You were telling the truth about those 39 pages of notes. I love it.
So here's the thing though, because the big aha moment for me came down to one statement that's made in this chapter, and that is trust is earned and given with belief. And here's why I felt that was so big. And of course, Andy Rise, talks more about the trust piece. But here's the part that I think people do not understand. You have a group of people out there who believe that trust is completely earned. You cannot, right? And I keep saying to people, whoa, wait. If trust is earned, give me your list, and I will do every single thing on your list. And at the end of the day, you still have a choice whether you want to give me trust or not.
Yes, exactly.
So now you throw in the word belief, man. You sound like I got to take a risk when it comes to trust. Oh, help me out here.
Yes, it definitely. So I'll give a backstory. And this also in chapter 1, you've read it, when Major Pettit essentially asked me, what are my top 3 leadership lessons, in life? And I scrambled to think of the top 3, and I felt like they were pretty solid answers. But one in particular was, when I was at West Point and I was getting ready to graduate, become a commissioned officer, second lieutenant for the first time, it's pretty common for cadets, West Point students, to ask NCOs, non-commissioned officers or mentors, people that they trust, hey, what would you tell a brand new second lieutenant reporting to his unit for the first time? How can that lieutenant succeed? Can you give us some advice or some mentorship? What would you say? And almost like a knee-jerk reaction to a man, I mean, literally, like everybody says this, trust your NCOs. Now, for those that aren't really familiar with the military, the NCOs, non-commissioned officers, you're kind of your blue-collar guys, your right-hand men, the guys that get things done, right? And so I said, okay, great. Easy enough. And I did that throughout my career. And Brian Pettit, he said, well, you know what, Jason, how has that worked out for you? And I thought back, and honestly, I said, not that well. And he said, well, listen, Jason, here's the thing. There are good NCOs and bad NCOs in the military, just like there are good NCOs and bad NCOs in the special forces. Same thing with officers, good officers, bad officers. They exist, so here's what I want you to do. I don't want you to trust your NCOs. And I was taken aback. I was like, so that goes against, everything I've ever heard from every leader I've trusted or believed in, or, that have mentored me. Like, let me clarify that statement. You say, do not trust your NCOs. And I thought about that. And he said, listen, Jason, why would you blindly follow someone just because they have 3 chevrons and a couple of rockers on their rank insignia? He's like, that's ludicrous. Don't trust someone because they have a sergeant in front of their name. Your NCOs need to earn your trust just as you need to earn theirs. So at some point, you're going to trust, for example, a guy's name, Mike Daniels. You're going to trust Mike Daniels because you know him as a person. He has proven himself to you, and he has earned that trust, and vice versa. And so only after you trust him, Mike Daniels, as a person, can you truly begin to trust Mike as Sergeant Daniels. So trust is the process, what he's trying to explain to me, or what he did explain to me. And he says, you need to take a risk. You need to take that uncomfortable leap of faith and believe in that person. Believe in Mike Daniels first. You need to believe that you can eventually trust him. And he said, does that make sense? And I felt pretty confident. And I said, it actually does. It actually makes a lot of sense to me. And so how do you do that? And he says, you have to give them actionable trust building activities. So it's always believe and then verify, trust and verify. It's kind of what we're going for. And the trust goes both ways. It isn't just like, oh, can I trust you? It's also, hey, can you trust me? Can you trust me, Brian Pettit, as a commander? You give me things to do so I can show you that you can trust me. And that's how this relationship is going to be built. It's going to be built on trust.
Which, by the way, you make a point. You make a great point in later on when you say the biggest difference between elite military units and businesses is shared culture. That culture is built on trust. No one in corporate America talks about trust. I started laughing. I go, yeah, we don't. We really don't talk about in corporate America about trust, right? Matter of fact, if anything, we talk just the opposite, don't we?
Yes, it's about where's my next paycheck. It's like, oh, I'm working with Jay now. He's paying me $100 an hour. Oh, I can maybe work with Mike. He's gonna pay me $102 an hour, and I'm gone.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's no, there's not, there's no culture there. It's just like we're jumping from job to job, paycheck to paycheck, and the trust isn't established. And that's people say, what's the difference between the civilian world and the military? And I tell them, and it's in the book. You just said it. The biggest difference between these elite military units, and as you know, I served with the Green Berets, and businesses is a shared culture. And that culture, the foundation, it's built on trust.
Right.
And nobody in corporate America, I mean, maybe there's a few, I'm not going to stereotype it, but really nobody is talking about trust.
Right.
And trust, like what Major Pettit shows, is effectively welcoming a valuable new employee, me, reporting to my unit for the first time, reporting to him, clearly setting expectations, establishing effective open communication, letting me know that I'm both valued and valuable, and he believes in me right off the bat.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I said it before, like, also in the book, whenever I had somebody, a coach, a mentor, a leader, somebody who said, Jason, I believe in you. Oh man, that's all I needed to hear.
Right.
Like, I will work my ass off for you. You know what I mean? Like, I will prove to you that you made the right choice in believing in me now. That's what goes through my mind.
Yeah, listen, I'm right with you on all this because I've yet to see it. I've yet to see a TV show on corporate trust. So I haven't seen that yet. So I haven't seen it. So let's move on.
Like that old Adam Sandler movie, Business Ethics.
Yeah, right. 101. So let's move on. Chapter 2, and it's called The Team with Steve Miller. And he was a retired U.S. Army Special Forces Green Beret officer. He also served as an Army Ranger in the 75th Ranger Regiment. Prior to that, he was a Navy SEAL. And his story is he pulls some things from his experience doing his BUD training, SEAL school, basically BUDs. And then he re-enlisted in the Army Rangers and then eventually Green Berets after 9/11. And he talks about maintaining the mission first mindset. What is that, and why is that so important?
Yeah, Steve has a really interesting story, like you said, and I always was really impressed with Steve. I always considered him a good friend. So he was a Navy SEAL. He got out, became a civilian, and then 9/11 hit. He wanted to rejoin the SEALs, but this time as an officer, and they told him, no, you couldn't do that. So he said, well, I'm going to join the Army then and become an officer. So he did. He went to Ranger School, became a Ranger, and then he went to the Special Forces Selection and Qualification course and became a Green Beret. And so he was quite a bit older than me when I met him at 10th Group. But he talks about having the mission first mindset. So making sure above all else that the mission comes first. Then the team, then your teammates, and then yourself. So having priorities, having your priorities straight, as a commander, and we talk a lot about what that means in the book as well. But I think that's a good foundation for this discussion.
Yeah. So here's the thing that kind of got me when it came to this maintain the mission first mindset. Because it's such a conflict in the way we think. Because we're so interested. The world teaches us that you got to look after number one, yourself, right?
Yes.
But then the thing is that, and here's the question that you start to ask is, you need to not ask what's in it for me, but what's in it for the people on my team. That's just a hard transition.
Oh, it's so hard. It's contrary to what you think and what you feel, but the bottom line is like once you make that transition, that uncomfortable leap of faith to say, okay, I'm putting their needs above my own. They're going to eat before I do. They're going to get taken care of before I do. If we're in combat and they get shot and I get shot, I'm making sure that they get taken care of first.
Right.
It's just a mindset that you internalize, and once you do, you see an amazing transformation. You see amazing things happen, not just for yourself and for the guys on your team, but also for accomplishing the mission. And we're in a profession where failure is not an option. We go out, we have to win.
Yeah, right,
that's
right.
kind of what we look at. And in business, in the civilian world, it's, people say that a lot, but do they actually do that? Not many,
Right. Right. No, I get it. And by the way, this is, and just jumping off of that, right? So if the first highest priority is maintain the mission mindset first, then the second highest priority leads right into that, which is the team.
That's correct.
Right. And I think we kind of, I think we could kind of understand, right? Because at the same time, I mean, you say on page 45, collectively we will achieve according to who we are, not what we want. And you also say that if you forget yourself and focus on making your teammates successful, then everything will work out. I think Steve said that. And so, but the point being is that, so if it's mission first, then it's team next, and then where do we go?
Then it's the individual teammates after the team. So there's certain creeds, and we talk about creeds later in the book as well, that you kind of internalize in the military. And the one that really resonated with me was the Ranger Creed. We had to repeat it in our pre-Ranger training every single day. During Ranger School, we repeated it several times a day. And the last stanza of the Ranger Creed is, readily will I display the intestinal fortitude required to fight on to the Ranger objective and complete the mission, though I be the lone survivor. And then you finish with, Rangers lead the way. And so that is just a message that's internalized. And you're like, the job is going to get done. The mission will get done no matter what. No matter if I'm the last guy standing, everybody else is dead, this mission will get accomplished. And that's just, gosh, it just resonates so much with me, and it's just so powerful. And that's how we win and succeed in the military. So the team is next, as you said, then the teammates. Then it's saying, okay, is the team okay? Does the team have everything that we need in order to be successful? Right. Now we take another step back and we say, okay, do the individual teammates, do they have everything that they need? Are they going through challenges? Are they, mentally up for this? Are they physically up for this? Is there anything going on in their personal life that I need to be aware of about that I could help them out with, or that could potentially be a challenge or a detriment to the team, to the mission? So that's kind of how you look at that. And then the individual is you kind of focus on yourself last, make sure you're okay with everything. But at the same time, because you're last, you also are a teammate. So in everybody else's eyes, you're third in priority. They're making sure that you're okay. My guys would always make sure that I was doing well and okay. My mind was in the right spot. I was physically ready, willing, and able to do the mission. And I understood what was going on, and I was empowered and prepared to be as successful as I can be. And then you kind of take a step back and you do like a little assessment and make sure that you personally are in a good spot.
I want to read you something from this book that I just found incredibly enlightening, that I think every person who's listening can also find enlightening. You said, I learned that, and this is from your practice. By the way, the book is divided up into sections. So Jason has this practical application section with himself, as well as some professional prior to that. And then he's got a remember section, which is kind of a summary of the book. But he's in his practical application. This is what Jason says. I learned that when you're on the precipice of a disaster, if you heard the phrase, the captain is not listening to us, in those situations, I would think, yeah, I heard you loud and clear. I just want to do what you suggested. The problem wasn't listening. It was communication. I didn't take the time to explain to the team why we weren't doing it the way they suggested or wanted. I didn't even realize that I was failing to communicate my intent. And here's the key, when you are failing to communicate, the team feels unappreciated and ignored. Individuals feel unwanted, they lose their faith in you, and ultimately bring the team down. Talk about, because I think people think that they're pretty good communicators, but we are really not that great of communicators, are we?
I think that's a great comment, Jay. And I think by nature, we are not great communicators. I don't think we are. I struggle with it all the time. I read this paragraph, and I was working with my chief of staff yesterday on a project. We were creating a one pager for this masterclass that we're about to launch, and we were going back and forth with ideas, and I started to go down a path, and in my mind, I was getting creative, and I was kind of laser focusing in on this paragraph and kind of trying to figure out the right verbiage to use and so forth. And my chief of staff was like, well, I think this. And I said, oh, hold on a second. And I was just typing, just completely laser focused, and 15 minutes goes by, and then afterwards, I'm like, okay, what do you think of this? And he's like, dude, I just checked out, man. You weren't listening to me. Like you were just kind of doing your own thing, and I just let you do your thing. So what do you want? What are you trying to do? And I'm just like, oh man, this paragraph comes to mind because it's so often, not just with your teammates or your employees, but also with your spouse at times, where you kind of get lost in your own mind or your own thoughts. And when you do, what you're really doing is you're failing to communicate to your team or to your spouse what's going on. And they, like I said in the book, they check out. They feel unappreciated. They feel ignored. They feel unwanted. They lose their faith in you. And ultimately, their attitude, because you're essentially putting this on their shoulders, becomes a very negative one. And it brings them down, it brings you down, and then it brings the whole team down. And so it happens to every commander.
Sure.
I'm being very authentic about this. I don't want anyone to think I'm Superman or anything. I've got all the answers and I'm the greatest special forces commander that's ever lived, because I know there are a lot of guys out there that kind of preach that or portray themselves as that. I'm a guy more like Obi-Wan Kenobi, like I'm a guy who's got a lot of experience, and I'm trying to help other people become the hero, if that makes sense.
Right.
But when I was a captain, when I was an officer, there were times when guys would say, hey, the captain's not listening to us. And like I said, I would say, yeah, I did. I listened to you. I heard you loud and clear. I just don't want to do that. We could do that, but I want to do it this way. And so we're going to do it this way. And I didn't take the time to sit down and say, okay, guys, here's the deal. This is why we're doing it this way. I totally heard you before. I listened to you. This is what you suggested, and that possibly could work, but this is another option, and here's why I want to do it this way.
Right.
And just as long as they understood my reasoning, everything would be okay. But if I didn't take the time to do that, they would think, oh, the captain doesn't think I'm smart. He doesn't think I have a good idea. We'll forget that. You know what I mean? And they would get their butt hurt, for a few days or weeks or what have you, until, obviously things will work itself out in the end. But that's kind of what I'm going after in that paragraph.
I just, here's the thing about that piece of it is that I think what happens as leaders, we have this expectation you're just going to do what I say. And,
yes.
And then what happens is we just, because, well, after all, Jason, you told us that we're in command. So, I mean, they just follow orders. But, the truth of the matter is, if we're doing this in the right order, right? If it's mission first, and then, it's our teammates and the team, and if we're doing it in the right order, and then ourselves, the truth of the matter is we're going to want to communicate the mission as clearly as possible. Even, I think the term is that you guys use is frago, when the mission changes, right?
Yeah, fragmentary order, right? Frago.
Yeah. So then what happens is that, they change. Well, you still have to be clear on what your mission is, right? And so things do change, but I think it's that clarity of mission that's just, we don't do a very good job of communicating it straight enough and forward enough. And we just assume everybody's just going to follow and do it. And that's what I thought was so beautiful about that particular chapter is just, we got to be clear, we just have to be.
I love that. It's something that really gets smashed into your skull at schools like Ranger School, where you're out in the woods and it's the middle of the night and you're in a Ranger file, which is basically just a line of guys, with rucks, heavy rucks on, full battle rattle, all your gear, your weapon, so forth. And you're walking in the woods, it's dark, you can't see anything, there's no lights, and there are times when you're tired. You're like, okay, when is this going to end? When are we going to get to the ORP, the objective rally point? When are we going to get to and when you're not getting that information, you get frustrated.
Right.
And you're like, what the hell is going on? Where are we going?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what's happening here? And then other people start to say that, and all of a sudden there's animosity on the team. And you feel that, you shouldn't be saying that, but you're tired, you're hungry, you've been walking, it's heavy, the pack's heavy, and it's just kind of all weighs on you. And that's kind of what happens. It always happens. And when you're a commander, when you're leading that file, when it's your turn for the mission, and you're so laser focused on getting to the ORP, you kind of forget from time to time to turn around and tell the guys, hey guys, we're going on this azimuth. This is our pace. This is how much further we have to go. If you just turn around from time to time and relay that information, guys are like, okay, got it. All right. Now I have a vision of what you want to accomplish. I get what you're trying to do, and I know in my mind how far we have to walk. Okay, I get it. I feel comfortable. This is great. And when you get so laser focused on things, you forget to do that. And we do the same thing in business. We get so laser focused on our vision or what we want to accomplish that we forget a lot of times about communicating that to the team, because it makes sense in our own minds, and we just neglect to make sure that everybody else understands that as well.
His name is Jason Van Camp, Major Jason Van Camp, retired. Book is called Deliberate Discomfort, and he's joining us here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, let me tell you something. New Directions, 2 sponsors, right? I talk about them all the time, but that's because I'm so proud of them, and they financially support the show. Epic Physical Therapy. Look, I go to them. They offer. I was just in their studio today. They're doing some new things in there. It's really cool, and they really do have the most advanced top-of-the-line equipment. Seriously, they really do. And they have things like the Alter G anti-gravity treadmill, take pressure off your joints if you want to run, and the Normatec compression sleeves. And then my favorite, the Game Ready, man. If you've never had, like 38-degree frozen water, compress your swollen joints, let me just tell you, it's awesome. So that's just a few things they do. And look, here's the other thing, is they are literally trained and certified in the most comprehensive cutting-edge treatments available, including things like blood flow restriction therapy, dry needling, which is awesome, and then cupping, which, if you've ever seen the swimmers with the circles on their back, well, that's cupping. They're manipulating the muscle through the skin. It's fantastic. So if you are ready for your epic relief and your epic recovery and your epic results, just go to Epic Physical Therapy. You can learn more by going to epicpt.com. That's EPICPT.com. And Linda Crafted Team Realtors. You know what? They are located in Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, North Carolina. But I got to tell you something. They serve the worldwide. And the reason why they can help you regardless of where they live is because they're independently owned and operated. They are unaffiliated with any national company. And for 35 years, they have built up a book of the best when it comes to real estate agents in the world. And so they can help you find the absolute best real estate professional to help you sell your home and buy your home, regardless of where you live. And it's going to be unbiased. There is not going to be this, well, we work for this company, so we'd rather that you use somebody in a company. No, she doesn't care what company you work for, because she's independently owned and operated. She's going to find the very best person for you to work with you, regardless of where you live. But being in Raleigh, the thing that she does in the Raleigh area at 7300 Six Forks Road, people come in from all over the Research Triangle Park. And the reason we call it that is because it's Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. But you know what? When they come in, the first thing they do is they hand you a bottle of water. They sit down and say, hey, let's talk. Let's talk about what your needs are and what your wants are, and what do you need in a house? What do you want in a house? What do you need to do to sell your home? What do you want to do when it comes to selling your home? And the thing is, they want to create a relationship, which is why their clients call them the legends of customer service. So when you're ready to go with the legend, there is no place that you should start except right there at Linda Crafted Team Realtors, because they truly are the legends. So you can learn more by going to lindacraft.com. That's LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here with Jason Van Camp, Major Jason Van Camp, and his book, Deliberate Discomfort. It's just a great read. We've only done a couple chapters, by the way, in this whole thing. And sadly, him and I are running out of time. We're already 50 minutes into the show, and so we're probably not going to have much time but to do one more chapter. So I'm going to jump ahead, Jason, if you're okay with this, and we're going to jump to chapter 6, the Dragunov,
Okay.
with Rusty Witt. Rusty,
Yes.
Rusty served 6 years in the U.S. Army Special Forces Green Beret as a non-commissioned officer. He earned his bachelor's degree in police science administration from Abilene Christian University in 1994, and he now serves as a strength and conditioning coach at. Is he still doing that at the USMA at West Point? Is he still strength?
At the time this book was written, he was. Now he's at Troy University.
Yeah, I was
going to
say I thought he was at Troy. Because knowing these strength coaches as I do in college, I was like going, hold it here. Didn't he wind up in Troy? So that's why I wanted to double check. So he talks about his first combat operation in Baquaba, and where it was Al-Qaeda occupied, and they run across a sniper with a Dragunov, and this is where we talked about, and I opened up the show with talking about we rise or fall to the level of training. So let's dig into that a little bit, understanding what's going on inside of our bodies during stressful moments and learning what we can do to keep our composure.
Yes. It's a great chapter. Rusty's a great friend of mine. And he is at Troy right now. He's doing well. I just talked to him a couple of days ago. So he's going out on his first mission ever, right? And his team, especially his team sergeant, they're kind of teasing him a little bit. They're like, Rusty, we're going to get into some really deep stuff here. I'm not cussing intentionally.
Thank you. Thank you.
And he's like, we're going to do a firefight. You're going to get your CIB in 5 minutes, your combat infantryman badge, which means that, if you've been into a firefight, essentially you get this badge. And so Rusty's nervous, he's in the back of the Humvee, just like, man, what is going on here? And he's kind of praying to himself, kind of humming a song. And they go into the city, and sure enough, there are enemy forces, and they get into a fight. And next thing you know, they're trying to figure out where this IED was initiated a day or two prior that really destroyed a Stryker vehicle, and really difficult situation for the U.S. Army that was stationed there. And they go into this house, and Rusty and his team sergeant, they go on the roof of the house, and they look around. Next thing you know, they see the glint off of a scope, and they realize it's a sniper. They hit the ground on the roof, and they're pinned down by this sniper, for hours up on this roof, full battle rattle, 140 degrees out with all your stuff on. It's probably more like 160 degrees out, just miserable, sweating. Rusty's first mission, so it's crazy. So there's all these things that are going through his mind and his body at the time. And one of the things that Rusty says is we rise or fall to the level of our training. And another phrase that we talk about in chapter 3 is we don't train until we get it right. We train until we can't get it wrong.
I love that. I loved that, because that came actually, I think, from chapter 3.
Yes.
Where I can't remember his name. He made a mistake in a training.
Matt did.
Matt did, right? Yeah. Matt made a mistake in training, and literally, if it had been live, his partner would have been killed. Right.
In real life, his partner would have been killed, and he would have been responsible for that. Right. And so he, as a leader, as the commander, he takes responsibility and says, "Listen, I messed up, guys.
Yeah.
Let's continue doing this until we get it right." And one of his soldiers corrects him and says, "Hey, sir, we don't train until we get it right. We train until we can't get it wrong." So right. That your training, your repetition is so ingrained, your muscle memory,
right.
In that you don't, when you're tired, you're miserable, you haven't had any food, you haven't slept in a while,
right.
Your body's drained, your muscle memory is such that you do it correctly because you don't have an option to do it any other way.
Right. It's interesting that you say this. A few weeks ago, I had on Delta Force Command Sergeant Major Tom Satterley, who was in Mogadishu and was in that Black Hawk Down, was in 18 hours of fighting in Mogadishu. And
he just LinkedIn contacted me and requested to be friends. So, yeah.
Really.
I know all about him. He's a great. I don't know him personally, but
he is a great guy. I mean, he is I just want to tell you, he's as great and cool of a dude, and his wife Jen is out. So anyway, all right, that's a whole nother story. We'll talk about that off the show. But the truth of the matter is, he said the same thing in his show that you repeated here, and that was, you're exhausted. We don't have water. We're tired. We're running out of ammo. We've been going for 18 hours. I don't even want to fight anymore. But your training just takes over.
And that is absolutely true. It's God's own truth right there. Now, the thing that is different about Mission 60, my company, is when we first started this company, I had veterans like the guys in the book, right? We would go and talk and so forth. And our clients, our audience, the audience members, they would be, inspired. They would be enthralled. They would have questions. And sometimes they would ask my team, well, tell me about that. How did you do that? Like, what was going, like, how did you accomplish that? And my guys would kind of say, well, I don't know. I just did it. I just relied on my training. Right. And it was kind of like, well, we're doing our clients a disservice, because we need to know more ourselves about how and why we did this. And that's why I brought scientists to my team, PhDs, researchers, experts. They can take these experiences and translate them into scientific theory and say, this is the so what and now what behind this experience, this story. And that's been a powerful game-changing decision, with the company and I hope with the book as well.
Well, I think you accomplished that because, and thank you for bringing that up, because I described parts of the sections of the book, but I didn't talk about the so what and now what pieces, because you do, you go from special operation forces to science with some, specialist, and then they talk about some deep insights, and then you have the so what, and then and now what, and then your application. I think the thing that with this particular section of the book, one of the things that this particular chapter, one of the things that you say is, when you are in the suck, and I love that. I love that. When you are in the suck, you need to be prepared, and preparation does not start the day out. It starts now.
That's right.
I think the thing, and I opened up the show changing my the way I do my 4 levels of, I said, it's your level of training. I think the truth of the matter is, we could talk about the endorphins and serotonin, and we could talk about dopamine and all those other things when it comes to physical, and oxytocin and cortisol and all those other things that we want to talk about. But the truth of the matter is, we do really need to train in all 4 areas. I think that's the thing about, as I read through this book with you, and I felt like you were right there kind of talking me through this book. The thing that I kept hearing over and over again is, you talked about emotions. You talked about the human spirit. You talked about being mentally prepared. And I think the thing that, we get caught up in so much of this physical training part of it, which is absolutely valuable. But the fact of the matter is, you guys are being mentally prepared every day. You're being mentally pushed. Your people were mentally pushing you. Your people were emotionally pushing you. Your people were spiritually pushing you every single day when you were in training.
You're absolutely correct. And that's how they build, a Green Beret. That's how they build Navy SEALs, Delta Force guys. That's what they do. And so most people, I think, surface level, they just focus on the physical.
Right.
Because you can see it.
Right.
Like, oh, that guy's got muscles, or that guy can run fast, or whatever.
Right.
But that's just, it's a component, but it's not making you a total warrior, a balanced warrior. You know what I mean? Like, this is how we look at it. I know you have 4 pillars. At my company, we have 6, and so you see a guy at the gym that's working out, that's absolutely shredded. He's ripped. Okay, well, maybe this guy lives in his mom's basement, and he doesn't really have a job, and he's not making any money. He doesn't really read any books. You know what I mean? Like, okay, he's really failing in these other areas of his life, but he's really, really succeeding in the physical area. Right. Or you see a guy, from a professional standpoint, a guy that's absolutely crushing it in business. He's making millions of dollars, right? But he's out of shape. He's got a gut. He doesn't look very healthy. He doesn't look like he gets much sleep. At the same time, his family life is a complete disaster. His wife's going to divorce him. His kids hate him. Right. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not good either. Right. You need to have a balance in all the areas of your life. And for us, it's mental, physical, spiritual, social, emotional, and professional. if you can balance those together, you're going to be a total warrior, bad A. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're going to be the guy, a warrior diplomat, a warrior ambassador, capable of not only kicking down doors, but also, verbally knocking people out in your mind. That's kind of how we look at it.
Brother, I'm going to tell you something. This has been awesome. I've had a great time with you. And I would,
Me too.
I would love to have you back to do more of this book. Would you come back sometime and do more?
It would be an honor. It really would.
I would love to bring you back later on down the road and talk more about this book, because the book is called Deliberate Discomfort, everybody. His name is Jason B.A. Van Camp, Major, retired, Green Beret, by the way. And is he just not just the coolest dude in the world, right? I mean, you think I'm having a bromance with him. I know that's what you're thinking out there, right? I've got some sort of...
It goes both ways,
yeah.
Jay.
So maybe I do. Maybe I do in reality. I kind of do. I really do. Listen, I didn't say this about him because he doesn't have people talk about this much, but I just want to say this. Listen, Jason is retired, but he earned the Bronze Star with the V device for Valor, as well as 2 additional Bronze Stars during 3 combat rotations in the Middle East and Africa. And I just feel like it's always important to recognize those things for the people who served our country and served people they didn't even know. And was it Oppressor di Libero, right?
De Oppresso Liber.
Right, to liberate the oppressed. And that's been his mission, and he's continuing to do that today with Deliberate Discomfort. And what he's doing is the oppression that we feel, he's liberating through this book. And so I really hope that you will purchase it, because it's a great book and he's a great guy. Jason, if you could give us a quick, new direction for people out there, what would Jason Van Camp say to the folks out there?
Thank you. People ask me, say, Jason, give me one thing that I can do differently. And I say, you tell me what that one thing is, because it's different for everyone. Like some people will tell you, take cold showers in the morning. Well, if that's hard for you, do it. If it's not hard for you, for example, I lived in Russia for 2 years. In April, they turn off the hot water, and they don't turn it back on until October. Like it was mandatory cold showers. I got used to it. If that's hard for you, do it. If waking up at 3:30 to be in the gym at 4 a.m. is difficult for you and it's hard for you and it's pushing yourself, do that. If it's not, hell, I was in the military for as long as, as till I retired. We woke up that early all the time to work out. So it's not difficult for me to do that. It's really not. Right. For whatever reason, my body just wakes up at that time. Other people will tell you, make your bed in the morning. First thing, well, I get that, but I was at West Point and we had to do that every single morning, right. Monday, like Sunday morning to Saturday night. Like that's how we lived. And I got used to that. So that's not a hard thing for me to do. But there are many other things that are very difficult for me to do. And so if it scares me and excites me and it's difficult, I try to do that. I try to voluntarily, deliberately choose discomfort in my life so that I can become a better, stronger, more improved person. And I really, truly believe that. And I know 100% it works. And so that's what I would leave your audience.
And isn't it true? It goes right back to the circle thing we started with, and that was, if you embrace the suck, if you do the things that are deliberately discomfort, you're going to increase your training, and when you increase your training, you're going to be ready for the bedtimes, aren't you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's awesome. His name is Jason Van Camp. Book again, Deliberate Discomfort. You can find it available Amazon bookstores near you. If it's not in your bookstore, you tell them to get it immediately. Okay? And you tell them to face it out, because it's an absolutely fantastic book. Folks, that's the show. You know what I say to you every week, and that's this. Be inspired, because when you're inspired, that means you can inspire others, and in turn, they can inspire those around them, and that can make this world an amazing place. I'm going to be back next week with another great guest, another great book, and another great show. And as I say to you every week, ciao, everybody.
You can find the strength to go a different way, yeah. The time has come for a new direction. Lost your confidence and the answers don't make sense. You got to keep your hope alive. You got to know you can survive. This is your time to fly. Your dreams will take you places you